Doris Kearns Goodwin, Team of Rivals, The Political Genius of Abraham Lincoln. Dive deep into the story of Abraham Lincoln, a man of wit and wisdom, in Doris Kearns Goodwin's Team of Rivals, The Political Genius of Abraham Lincoln. This captivating book summary takes you through Lincoln's arduous journey, from a modest upbringing to his role in the unfolding of the contentious political landscape of the United States, including the intense battles surrounding slavery and his daring decision to create a team of rivals in his administration. Get ready to uncover the incredible story of a determined leader who never ceased to astound others with his sheer resilience, intelligence, and forgiveness in the face of adversity.
The hardships of Abraham Lincoln's early years. Abraham Lincoln's early years were filled with significant hardships. Despite his illiterate father burning his books and the death of his mother and sister, Lincoln's spirit remained unbroken, and his ambition strengthened. His stepmother, Sarah Bush Lincoln, played a crucial role in nurturing his self-confidence and encouraging his education, leading him to start a career in law. Through it all, Lincoln's love of storytelling and innate spark of greatness shone through, transcending the poverty and misfortune of his surroundings. The road to the Republican Party. Abraham Lincoln's political career was ignited by the pressing issue of slavery during the 1840s and 1850s, as the United States faced growing tensions over the expansion of slavery into Western territories. Lincoln became a prominent anti-slavery advocate, and the debates ultimately led to the creation of the Republican Party. The Compromise of 1850 briefly diffused tensions but was only a temporary solution. The Kansas-Nebraska Act allowed territories to decide for themselves regarding slavery, which repealed a previous statute that prohibited slavery north of Missouri. The Whigs and Democrats were so divided on the issue that anti-slavery advocates formed the Republican Party in 1854. Lincoln's surprise nomination. Despite having a modest political career compared to other candidates, Lincoln emerged as the Republican nominee for the 1860 election. William Henry Seward, an expert politician with Thurlow Tweed as his campaign manager, and Salmon Chase, an anti-slavery trailblazer, were also considered. Additionally, Edward Bates, an esteemed candidate with a long law career and experience in drafting a state constitution, ran for the nomination. However, Lincoln ultimately won despite his two failed Senate bids and humble law career. Lincoln's winning strategy. Lincoln's calculated campaigns and consistent anti-slavery stance solidified his Republican nomination win, contrasting his competitors' complacency and indecisiveness. None of Lincoln's fellow nominees considered him a significant rival, yet he outpaced them by tirelessly building momentum instead of resting on his laurels. He lost to Douglas in the 1858 senatorial race, but he won the popular vote, and his speeches during the Lincoln-Douglas debates became an inspiration for debate classes for years. In preparation for the Republican Convention in 1860, Lincoln traversed the northern states, including vital regions like New England, delivering captivating speeches that meticulously presented the Republican agenda. With his winning anti-slavery stance, Lincoln acted as a compromising figure with the South and the border states. Furthermore, he made friends wherever he campaigned, a stark contrast to his opponents, Seward and Chase, who underestimated Lincoln's strategic efforts by neglecting campaigning. Seward's European tour and Chase's lack of action on Seward's absence allowed Lincoln to rise. Unlike Bates, who had a contradictory stance on slavery and was dismissive of the subject, Lincoln consistently pushed the issue to the forefront. Bates's statements favoring enigmatic issues meant he ultimately stood no chance against Lincoln's well-crafted and clear-cut campaign. The Republican Party was thus pleased with Lincoln's unwavering principled stance, leading to his surprise nomination victory. Lincoln's team of rivals. Lincoln chose a diverse team of smart and ambitious individuals for his presidential cabinet, regardless of their political affiliations. This included his rivals such as Chase, Seward, and Bates. By appointing this surprising mix of people, Lincoln believed he could unite the North and South and make the best decisions. Despite the challenges ahead, he held firm to his belief in this team of rivals. Lincoln's first challenge. It was 1861, and Abraham Lincoln had just assumed the presidency of a divided nation. The already tense relationship between the North and South worsened, with newspapers branding him as the President of the Northern Confederacy. In the midst of this hostility, Lincoln faced his first challenge, the looming capture of Fort Sumter by the Southern Confederates. The president was presented with two choices: send reinforcements and risk further agitation, or surrender the fort and be perceived as weak. Lincoln sought advice from his cabinet, and while most agreed that reinforcement was necessary, Seward was opposed, recommending the surrender of the fort. Lincoln decided to send reinforcements. However, conflicting orders and revised plans that were intercepted by Confederate authorities led to the fort's surrender. Lincoln took full blame for the failure and never wavered in his willingness to accept responsibility. The fall of Fort Sumter led to the secession of several states, pushing the nation to the brink of civil war. Lincoln's battle for democracy. In the midst of a bloody conflict between the North and South, President Lincoln saw an opportunity to unite the North by making it clear that the war wasn't just about slavery, but about fighting to keep the very idea of democracy alive. Despite his vision, Lincoln struggled to find a general who could match his spirit. The First Battle of Bull Run ended in a Confederate victory, and the Union forces stalled under General George McClellan's leadership. McClellan constantly overestimated the size of the Confederate army, leading to more defeats and casualties. Lincoln knew changes had to be made and replaced unreliable Secretary of War Cameron with Edwin Stanton, a Democrat and U.S. Attorney General. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. Lincoln's strategic move to end slavery and enlist black soldiers during the Civil War. In the midst of the American Civil War, Lincoln faced a critical decision to enlist black soldiers and end slavery in the Confederate States. After months of deliberation, Lincoln presented the Emancipation Proclamation as an executive order to his cabinet. This order allowed Lincoln to bypass Congress and strike down the fugitive slave law, freeing millions of slaves and making them eligible to serve in the Union Army. Despite the urgency of the situation, Seward counseled Lincoln against announcing the proclamation immediately, warning of the proposal's impact on the Union's low morale. Lincoln heeded his advice and waited for a Union victory that would provide the perfect opportunity. At the Battle of Antietam, the Union secured a much-needed victory. Lincoln announced the Emancipation Proclamation at the beginning of 1863, and the Union's success continued with the leadership of General Ulysses S. Grant. Grant's victories divided the Confederate Army, and the tide of the war shifted in the Union's favor. Although the road to ending slavery and winning the war was challenging, Lincoln's strategic move was critical in securing a Union victory. The battle that secured Lincoln's re-election. Despite the ongoing war and casualties, Lincoln's re-election was far from certain. However, the Battle of Chickamauga saw the Union hold on to Chattanooga and led to Secretary of War Edwin Stanton's successful plan to reinforce and launch a new offensive under General Grant. Union victories in Atlanta and Mobile Bay secured their position against the Democrats' misguided policy of compromise, guaranteeing Lincoln's re-election. Stanton's plan was considered one of the fastest mobilizations in military history and effectively brought the war to a close. Lincoln's strategic moves. With strategic decisions and goodwill, Lincoln navigated through his second term, balancing politics and war. He accepted Salmon Chase's resignation and appointed him as Chief Justice, despite the latter's presidential ambitions. Lincoln also pushed for the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery, rallying Congress members and securing its passage. His magnanimity and vision for a post-war America earned him respect and admiration. The Assassination of Lincoln. After the Civil War, John Wilkes Booth and two other conspirators planned to kidnap President Lincoln. Upon hearing Lincoln's speech, Booth changed the plan to murder Lincoln, Vice President Andrew Johnson, and Secretary of State William H. Seward. The plot was executed on April 14, 1865, resulting in Lincoln's death and severe injuries to Seward and many others. The South lost a valuable friend in Lincoln, and his assassination was a tragic blow to the reconstruction of the United States.
As we wrap up this riveting journey through a team of rivals, it becomes increasingly evident why Abraham Lincoln was a remarkable figure in American history. Despite his humble beginnings, early tragedies, and political setbacks, he rose to become an indomitable force in the fight against slavery and securing the unity of the nation. Lincoln demonstrated unprecedented magnanimity and savvy in crafting a cabinet that included his former rivals, realizing their varying perspectives would lead to better decision-making. Ultimately, Lincoln's unwavering dedication to the cause of justice and his uncanny ability to forgive, even those who conspired against him, has left an enduring legacy of leadership for generations to come.